At 5:17 in the morning, somewhere over open international waters, 5 radar contacts changed direction at exactly the same time. Not 1, not 2, 5. And every single one of them is now heading directly toward a United States Navy carrier strike group. The ocean is calm, the sky is clear, and inside the Combat Information Center of one of the most powerful warships ever built, something subtle but very serious has just begun. Inside the carrier's Combat Information Center, the room is dimly lit. Large radar displays glow softly across the walls, showing a real-time digital picture of the surrounding airspace and sea lanes. Sailors and officers sit at their consoles, quietly monitoring the situation. Voices are calm, professional, and controlled. Nothing about the atmosphere suggests panic, but something has definitely changed. Only moments earlier, the radar picture had been completely routine. Commercial air traffic was moving normally across international corridors. Friendly aircraft were following their patrol routes. Surface ships were distant and clearly identified. Everything was predictable. Everything was stable. Until 5 radar returns, flying parallel to the carrier strike group, suddenly adjusted their course. The air intercept controller leans closer to the screen. The new data confirms it immediately. Those aircraft are no longer flying parallel. They are heading straight toward the carrier. Altitude, 24,000 feet. Speed, 480 knots. Heading, direct intercept. Within seconds, identification systems confirm the aircraft type: MiG-29 Fulcrum fighters, Iranian Air Force, and perhaps most concerning of all, the Iranian aircraft are completely silent. No communication on civilian frequencies, no standard military contact, no warnings, no identification call, just speed and silence. The tactical action officer speaks calmly across the operations floor. Log the vector change, continue tracking, confirm intent. There are no raised voices, no dramatic reactions. This is the U.S. Navy at work. Every person in that room understands the situation perfectly. When combat aircraft change course simultaneously toward a carrier strike group, it is never an accident. It is a decision. Above them, on the massive flight deck of the aircraft carrier, the morning air is cool and quiet. 2 A-18E Super Hornets sit armed and ready in Alert 5 status, meaning they can launch within minutes if required. Their pilots are already strapped into their seats. Helmet visors are down. Engines are ready. They have been watching the same radar picture, and they already know what may happen next. Meanwhile, the Iranian fighters accelerate. The radar screens update again. Speed, 520 knots. At 27,000 feet above the ocean, an E-2D Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft continues monitoring the situation. Its powerful radar sweeps hundreds of miles in every direction. Within seconds, the Hawkeye crew confirms something that immediately raises tension inside the combat center. The Iranian fighters are descending, from 24,000 feet down to 19,000 feet. That change matters, because when fighter jets descend toward a target while maintaining high speed, the geometry begins to resemble something very specific, an attack profile. But the aircraft carrier itself does not change course. It continues moving steadily through the water at 21 knots. That is deliberate. U.S. Navy doctrine is very clear. A carrier does not react dramatically to intimidation. Instead, the strike group quietly begins adjusting its defensive formation. A guided missile cruiser slides slightly to port. A destroyer increases speed to tighten the defensive perimeter. Radar systems across the fleet shift from routine monitoring to engagement quality tracking. Vertical launch missile cells remain closed. Weapons are safe, but ready. There is a critical difference between not being ready to fire and choosing not to fire yet. At this moment, the entire strike group is firmly in the second category. The distance between the Iranian fighters and the American carrier continues shrinking. 82 nautical miles, then 70, then 64. Electronic support systems detect something new: radar emissions, the distinctive signal of the MiG-29's N019 radar. The Iranian fighters have activated their radar systems. They are not yet locked onto a target, but they are actively scanning, searching, measuring. The tactical action officer makes the next decision: launch the alert aircraft. On the flight deck, steam erupts from the carrier's catapult system. The first Super Hornet is thrown forward with tremendous force, accelerating from 0 to nearly 170 miles per hour in just seconds. Its afterburners ignite, leaving a bright orange glow as it climbs into the pale morning sky. Seconds later, the second Super Hornet launches behind it. The 2 American fighters immediately climb to altitude and turn directly toward the approaching MiGs. Now the closing speed between both sides exceeds 1,000 miles per hour. Inside the Hawkeye aircraft orbiting above the fleet, radar operators continue updating the tactical picture. The Iranian fighters descend again, now 15,000 feet. That altitude brings them closer to a potential attack profile. It also compresses the radar horizon and reduces reaction time for both sides. Meanwhile, the American Super Hornets reach their intercept position. Their radar locks onto the approaching formation. 5 contacts confirmed. MiG-29 Fulcrums. The American fighters maintain altitude advantage. Their AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles are armed but not locked. Because the moment a fighter establishes a hard radar lock, the situation can escalate instantly, and everyone involved knows it. As the distance drops below 40 miles, the Iranian formation changes shape. 2 fighters move left, 2 move right, 1 remains high above the center. It is a classic offensive spread formation designed to confuse defenses and test reaction times. Still, the Iranian pilots say nothing on the radio. No communication, no explanation, only speed and silence. At 30 miles, sailors on the aircraft carrier's deck begin spotting faint shapes in the distance. Small gray silhouettes appear against the bright horizon. The carrier's close-in defense systems rotate slightly toward the sky, not firing, just watching. Inside the combat center, the tactical action officer speaks quietly. Record all emissions. 20 miles. Now both sides are firmly inside beyond visual range missile engagement distance. If either side fires now, the first missile could reach its target in less than a minute. The American intercept controller transmits a warning on international emergency frequency. Iranian military aircraft, you are approaching United States naval forces operating in international airspace. Maintain safe separation. No response. 15 miles. The MiG-29s descend again, now 10,000 feet. The formation tightens. At this point, the American pilots can clearly see them. Twin vertical stabilizers, gray camouflage, Iranian roundels shining in the sunlight. The distance continues collapsing. Inside the combat center, every person understands the gravity of the situation. 5 fighter jets are now approaching one of the most powerful warships on Earth. And they are still coming. At 12 miles, one of the MiGs dips its nose slightly toward the carrier group. Possibly a simulated attack run. But the American Super Hornet pilots do not react aggressively. Confidence itself becomes a form of deterrence. Because in military confrontations like this, panic invites escalation. Calm control sends a stronger message. 10 miles, 8 miles, 7 miles. Radar warning receivers inside the American fighters suddenly emit a sharp tone. Spike. One of the Iranian radars has briefly shifted into targeting mode. It lasts only a second. But inside the combat center, everyone hears the report instantly. The tactical officer nods once. They're probing. The MiG formation tightens again, now within 5 miles of the carrier strike group. At this distance, a missile fired from either side would reach its target in seconds. The sky is silent. The ocean below remains calm. And then it happens. One of the Iranian MiGs suddenly rolls left, ignites its afterburner, and slices across the front of the leading Super Hornet at extremely close distance. Less than 1,000 yards, the maneuver is fast, deliberate, a direct show of aggression. Inside the American cockpit, the pilot remains calm, no evasive maneuver, no flares, no weapons launch, he simply holds course. Moments later, another MiG performs a similar maneuver from the opposite side. The remaining Iranian fighters tighten their formation behind them. The message is obvious. They are demonstrating how close they can get. Now the entire formation descends even lower. One Iranian fighter drops to just 6,000 feet. That altitude reduces radar detection range and compresses reaction times even further. The tension inside the carrier's combat center becomes intense, but still controlled. Then one MiG suddenly rolls inverted. For 2 seconds, its nose points directly toward the aircraft carrier. Inside the American fighter cockpit, the radar warning receiver suddenly screams again. This time the signal is unmistakable, a full fire control radar lock. If a missile launch follows, it could happen within 4 seconds. The American pilot's hand moves closer to the weapon selector, but he does not fire. 2 seconds pass. The radar lock disappears. The MiG levels out and roars over the ocean at extremely low altitude, passing directly in front of the aircraft carrier before climbing away. The remaining Iranian fighters widen their spacing. Within seconds, the entire formation begins turning east, away from the carrier strike group. The American fighters maintained distance, shadowing the departing aircraft, but not pursuing aggressively. Inside the combat center, radar screens confirm what everyone is beginning to realize. The Iranian aircraft are disengaging. Distance increases 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles. The radar emissions fade. The MiGs climb back to cruising altitude and continue eastward. Within minutes, they disappear beyond 40 nautical miles. The immediate threat is over. But inside the carrier strike group, nobody celebrates, because everyone understands exactly how close that encounter came to becoming something much worse. The maximum approach distance was less than 2 nautical miles. The radar lock lasted 2 seconds. If it had lasted 3 seconds, escalation procedures would have begun immediately. Missiles would likely have launched. And within seconds, a regional crisis could have turned into a global confrontation. Instead, both sides stepped back. The aircraft carrier continues forward at 21 knots, never having changed course even once. That detail matters enormously, because in military strategy, maintaining course under pressure sends a powerful signal. It communicates control, confidence, and deterrence. Within the carrier strike group, intelligence teams immediately begin analyzing every second of the encounter. Radar recordings, electronic emissions, video from fighter cockpits, infrared tracking data. Every movement of the Iranian aircraft is cataloged, because the next time a similar radar signature appears anywhere in the world, the system will recognize it instantly. Modern warfare is fought as much with data as with weapons. Meanwhile, flight operations resume on the carrier's deck as scheduled. Training sorties launch. Maintenance crews return to their routines. But every sailor and pilot on board knows something important. For 12 minutes that morning, the margin between demonstration and detonation was thinner than a razor blade. 5 Iranian MiG-29 fighters approached one of the most powerful naval formations on Earth. They tested its defenses, measured its reactions, and left. The carrier never changed course, the fighters never fired, and the ocean returned to silence. But next time, the margin could be even smaller, and the decisions even faster. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to subscribe and activate notifications so you don't miss our next analysis of modern military encounters and geopolitical events. Because sometimes the most important battles are the ones that almost happened.